Hello there everybody, Sam's Trains here and welcome back to the railway. After the disaster that was the Hornby 14XX, I've decided to look at another tank engine today from another manufacturer in the hopes that, you know, it'll actually be worth our time. Dapol released their B4 shunter in 00 scale in 2018, and I bought one of these at the time. It was this one, Ken, in the brown, and from what I remember these were pretty decent models. But recently Dapol released a new batch of these B4 locos, and one of them in particular looked so different from the one I've already got that I decided to pick one up and take a fresh look. So today I'm looking at this. It's another B4 in 00 scale, but in a different livery, and it's also got some tooling variations on it as well, which we'll see. So the RRP for this is £126.36, and I paid £99.45 for mine from Hatton's, which in this day and age for a small tank engine is actually a pretty fair price. Now, looking at the retailer price for these at the moment, they seem to be a little bit more expensive, so it might be that I got mine slightly cheaper because I pre-ordered it quite some time ago, but still at the retailers approximately £100, not too bad in my opinion. And if you'd like to pick one up, I've popped an affiliate link in the description for you. But let's jump into this, let's see what this is like, and let's see if it is indeed worth our time. Alright, the Dapol B4, not just produced in 00 scale of course, but also in O scale, and the O scale version of this is absolutely tremendous. If you'd like to check it out, I'll pop a link up there for you. Really, I think Dapol's best O gauge model. Anyway, let me show you the end of the box. So the one I've got is 4S-018-012. It's the B4 040 tank, lined dark, green jersey. What this has got to do with a green jersey, I don't know. Number 91. And there's nothing much to see on the box except that it is a decent quality sturdy box. So let's open it up and let's take a first look. Hoping this livery will be quite smashing. It certainly looks it in the listing images. Alright, so we've got a beautiful manual. Hopefully it will be as well produced as some of Dapol's others, and yeah, it does seem to be. Alright, so coupling. Removing the body, that's fair enough. Putting the body back on, fitting a DCC decoder, that's all fine. Here we go, exploded diagram. So you can see we've got the body, the chassis, a little bit about the mechanism, seems to be a nice little motor there with a flywheel. Full list of different parts, very good. Yep, even more on that. A bit about the warranty, and that's pretty much it. So yeah, top tier stuff as always. Nice to have that in such a clean little leaflet. Okay, here we go. Let's do the reveal. Alright, well, not much of a reveal. It's kind of shrouded behind all the wrap, but that's fine. We will prolong it. Accessories. Oh, the accessories are in the top here, so I guess we'll get straight in and see what we get in there. Alright. Well, this is interesting. What are these? So they've got NEM plugs on them, so I assume you can fit these in place of the couplings to make the model look a bit more realistic. But that is it, that's all we've got in terms of accessories. So you actually get more or less a complete model when you buy one of these, which is pretty good. I know some people don't like having to fit extras because it can be quite fiddly. But okay, let's have a look. What's the paintwork and finish like? Let's unwrap and see. Ooh. Yeah, that is a genuinely odd shade of green. It's almost looking a bit blue or grey even under these lights. But yeah, get the angle right and it does look grey. Some lovely banding as well. Finish looks okay as well. Yeah, nice satin finish. I remember the other B4 of mine looking perhaps a bit more plasticky than that. So that is cool. Right, let's lift it up. Oh, what's that? Sandbox. Yeah, you see that sandbox with the pipe. Okay, so I guess I'll have to glue that on at some point, but let's look at the loco without that to start with. Wow. Yeah, this thing is awesome. I mean, the cab is the most obvious interesting aspect of this. Very unusual cab with the cutaways, which is to improve visibility, I think, but that also makes it incredibly odd. Very odd looking. Yeah, other than that though, the livery is beautiful, very much so. The loco though is pretty light. I think we've seen a lot of heavy tank engines in this industry over the past few years. The Peckets, to name a particularly heavy one. They had a lot of die-cast on them. This one does not seem to. I assume the chassis is probably die-cast, but that's pretty much it. The body and the running plate, all plastic. So I guess for £99, a little bit more metalwork would have been nice. But in terms of the way the model looks, yeah, it looks really, really lovely. I really like that cab. So a much closer look at this in just a second, but first let's have a bit of background on the B4 in real life. The B4 originated on the LSWR when it was introduced to the design of William Adams for station piloting and dock shunting. Despite having outside cylinders, the class ran on Stephenson's valve gear between the frames, which is quite an unusual design. A number of variations was produced over the years, including different chimneys and even some with cutaway cabs for better visibility, like this one. Due to the tight curves in the yards where these would work, they were designed with very short wheelbases to allow them to handle these with ease. The first 10 examples were built in 1891, with the final examples not built until 1908. In all, 25 were built in total. From 1923 they became part of the Southern Railway fleet, where they continued to be used, though they were quickly outperformed by the Southern Railway USA tanks when they were introduced in 1947. Withdrawal of the B4s began the following year in 1948, and by 1963 the last one was gone. Today only 2 of them remain preserved, while the rest, very sadly, were scrapped. So there it is up close and personal for you, the Dapol B4 Jersey in this beautiful lined green livery. And the verdict is in. Overall, I would say I really like this locomotive. However, it was pretty obvious from the moment I opened the box, really, that the quality of this model isn't what it ought to be. It is extremely light due to its plastic construction, coming in at just 90 grams. Compare that with the much smaller Hornby Peckett. This thing weighs nearly 40 grams more, which is basically half the weight again. This thing is even less, in fact, than a Hornby Lion or Tiger, so very, very light, and the plastic construction has also meant that the running plate is significantly warped, which I think is noticeable with the naked eye actually, but if I hold my ruler up to it, yeah, you can see that it does warp up quite a bit towards the front, which is completely unacceptable. I have glued the sandbox and pipe back on, so that's not much of a problem, but I have noticed that the one on the other side is also loose, so it looks like these weren't even glued into place. It looks like they were just popped in and it was hoped that they would stay there. You've also got a visible gear shaft behind the rear driving wheel, which hasn't been covered up at all, so that is quite distracting. So right off the bat, a few quality issues, but otherwise the presentation of the loco is excellent. So let's start looking at what this loco has got. So the decoration and finish is gorgeous. Yeah, the finish is absolutely fine. Nice satin gleam to this. The lining on top of the boiler looks excellent, really good, and there is a lot of lining on this model. The tanks are lined, even the little toolboxes on top of the tanks has lining on it. The steps are fully lined, and so is the cab area. I guess I should show you the cab area as well, because it really is unusual. You've got this sort of porthole looking window, and then the sides are left completely open, although you have got these sort of handrails leading up to the roof. So a very, very unusual cab, completely unique in my collection, and so for that reason I would say this was worth it. The cylinders are beautifully painted as well. We've got lots of different colours used here, including the metallic silver ends as well as all of the lining. And the smokebox door has some of the details picked out as well, which looks lovely. I think the choice of paint on the various pipework is a massive improvement over Dapol's older B4, which I remember thinking didn't look very convincing. Yeah, the brass and copper coloured paints now look way, way better, which is great to see. Let's talk about some of the details then. So we'll start with the buffer beams, where most of the detail has been pre-fitted, as you can see, although no screw-link couplings were provided. The buffers are very fine, yet also sprung, which is good to see. I like that. And there are separately fitted lamp brackets on the buffer beam. The smokebox door has the dart separately fitted, which is nice and straight, so that looks good. You've got wire handrails, which again seem to be well fitted, nothing wrong with that. This casing to the side of the smoke box door, that hasn't been fitted perfectly straight, but besides that, it is a quality part. We've got some decent detail up on top of the tanks. As you can see, most of this is separately fitted, and I also like these struts in front of the cab, which are presumably there to support it maybe. Around here we've also got the safety valve assembly, which has been nicely painted, and on the other side we've got a little separately fitted whistle, although that is just plastic as far as I can tell. The underframe is fairly detailed as well. We've got the various cams and levers for the brakes, I assume, as well as the wheels, which have been nicely painted, and the axles have been disguised as well. The coupling and connecting rods are actually metal, although as per this livery they've been painted, so they really stand out beautifully, and I'm quite looking forward to seeing those run. Around the back we've got separately fitted handrails, we've got lamp brackets which are extremely fine yet also separately fitted, and another detailed buffer beam. The couplings are NEM, and they are kind of kinematic, although they do seem to be drooping down quite a bit, so whether these will couple or not, we'll find out when I test this. And then my favourite aspect of this, the cab interior. Really quite wonderful. We've got loads and loads of separately fitted components in there, quite a few different colours of paint used as well, so it all stands out. Detailed regulator pipe work, although the gauges unfortunately haven't been painted and detailed. I think some detail on these gauges would have been way better given how exposed this cab is. I should say also that the glazing on the cab windows is a lot better than on the old B4. I think a lot of those were wonky on my example, whereas this one looks perfect, so it's got that going for it as well. So a well-presented model, not the greatest quality, and the weight is really quite disappointing given what this cost. This cost me about the same as the new Hatton's P-Class and Andrew Barclays are going to cost at £99, and when you consider how much heavier those are and how much better the quality is, yeah, I think this could have been a bit better. But let's move on, let's get it down onto the track, let's see what the performance is like, and let's also take a look at the mechanism, because I really can't remember too much about these. So there it is down onto the track, looking really quite gorgeous actually, and I think a lot of that is to do with the paint job. Dapol are actually pretty decent when it comes to liveries, at least most of the time. Anyway, I filmed the initial performance test and I'll show you how that went in just a second. Up next, I took this apart to take a look at the mechanism, and that's what we're going to talk about now. So generally speaking, the mechanism is really good, decent quality, but in terms of accessing the innards for DCC chipping and maintenance, it's an utter nightmare to an unbelievable extent. Really, really bad design. But first, there's a strange bit of design here. You notice the front axles here are actually compensated, they can rock. Now this doesn't cause any problems or anything, but I have to say I've never really seen the point of this feature. There are plenty of other small wheelbase 040s in my collection without this feature, which run 100% perfectly. I have heard that this can help with adhesion around curves and such, but you know what also helps with adhesion? A bit of weight, which is something this loco is lacking. As for base keeper plate and body removal, according to the instructions, this looks like a nightmare, so I'm going to do this live. Now, I've owned one of these before, and something is telling me that this will be easier if I remove the NEMs. So I'm going to do that to start with. So, in order to access the DCC decoder socket, you do have to remove the base keeper plate. That's what the instructions say. So we're starting off on pretty much the wrong foot. That is horrible bit of design work that you've got to basically disassemble the thing just to get inside to chip it. But I want to remove the base keeper anyway to look at the bearings and see how this works, so that's not such a big deal. So we've got 4 screws by the looks of it, 2 are out already, and then the last couple are at the back here. So hopefully that means the base is now going to be free to come off. Let's see about that. Got to do this carefully because the couplings are a nightmare on this. What's that? Pull that out. So with the base removed, the kinematic couplings are now free to drop out of place, which is quite terrible. So I'm going to be really, really careful not to dislodge those. Right, I've got to, oh, hang on. Oh, for goodness sake. So I can't leave the NEM pockets as they are because the screws to remove the body are underneath them. Oh, for goodness sake. Those springs come out, it's bad news. Right, there's one. Okay, I might as well, I'll put this coupling back where it was just so that it doesn't go flying. And then the other one. Yeah, I think it's fair to say that Dapol do this a bit better on their later locos, you know, where you can pop the smoke box door off and there's the socket. Yeah, this is a farce. This is actually insane. Because now the base keeper's off, I've got to be careful with what I do now that the body should be loose, because the couplings and the axles could come falling out of this. And the body's not released, and I've got to be careful with these sanding pipes because they're loose. Yeah, is there another screw? No, the instruction says there's no more screws, but the body should now be free to lift off. Well, it isn't. It's stuck. I'm actually having to be quite rough with this, and I don't want to smash the cylinders off. Oh, what a nightmare. That's not shifting. Look at that. I'm being really rough with it. And I can't flip it the right way up because the axles are going to drop out. Dapol, this is ridiculous. Alright, let's cut it there. I'll try and figure this out. Okay, figured it out. The instructions were just wrong. That's incorrect. There are 3. There's another one right there underneath this coupling. So, well done, Dapol. Bad instructions could have caused me to destroy the model. Before we go underneath the body though, you can see that we've got proper bearings on the driving axles, which is really good to see, and it's single axle drive as well, so relatively simple. The front axle is very strange. It's got 3 bearings on it. The centre one, which looks like it's brass or something similar, that's kind of the pivot point. And then the other 2 are obviously a different material. Not sure if they're plastic, probably just some blackened darker metal, not sure. And they're able to slide up and down. So quite a complex little assembly there to allow that compensation, which is strange again because I don't really see what it brings to the model. We've also got wiper pickups going to each wheel, which is pretty simple and does seem to work well. Okay, so with the body off, here is the chassis, and it's actually a lovely chassis, really nice and neat. 6-pin DCC decoder socket, so if you want to chip it, that's what you need. And it's got this lovely 5-pole motor in it, which looks like the same sort of thing used in the Oxford Adams radial tank, where it was a nightmare, but here it seems perfectly okay. Possibly because of how small and light this loco is, it probably doesn't put the motor under very much strain. And there's also a large flywheel inside here. Quite an unusual feature for such a small loco, so impressed with that. And there's also a pair of LEDs underneath the firebox as well, so you do have the firebox flicker. And then the gauge comes in at 14.3mm back to back, which is just underneath the standard, absolutely fine. So a really good quality mechanism. I like the chassis a lot. It's just such a nuisance to get into the thing. Don't know why they made it that way. But anyway, that's that. Let's now go back in time and let me show you that first performance test. Moment of truth then. What is the performance like on this? Well, does it work at all? I guess should be the first question. So forwards direction, let's give it a little bit. Here we go. Well, it stumbled forwards and then stopped. Let's change direction and give it a nudge. I should say at this point it has not been running. This literally is its first ever run, so hopefully it will improve as it goes. And yeah, already it seems to be. It hasn't stopped again, has it, since that first little cutout. Yeah, it's very quiet, and it's certainly smooth, which is great. Let's have a look what the gearing's like. Let me back it up and then drive it past at half speed. So half speed. Yeah, so this is a dock shunting locomotive. It's not supposed to be racing round. So I would say the gearing seems very reasonable and sensible. What's the range of speeds like then? Let's go past at full speed just to see what that looks like. Yeah, so pretty speedy, pretty speedy. I'm also noticing this is going over the express points without any problems. Let me show you that. So the dead zone is here. Let's go past at a kind of reasonable speed to start with. Yeah, not even seeing it lose power at all there. Let's go back over it a bit more slowly. This is kind of cruel, but we'll see. Yeah, so it did just cut out there. But again, this does have a small wheelbase, so that is kind of to be expected. But at least at the higher speed it did it fine. Let's Try a bit faster. Yeah, it's all right, that. So yeah, we've definitely seen worse. Out of the box crawl test then, what's this like? Let's see if it can do one. Turning it up very slowly, very slowly. Yep. Wow. Yeah, it sure can. And this is without any running in at all. Let's try it in reverse. Slowly easing it up. Slowly. It's cut out, I think. Oh dear. Okay, well that should improve with running in. Let's try one more time. Blimey, the suspense there nearly caused an accident with me. Okay, try again. Yeah, there we go. And can it accelerate smoothly from there? Yeah, sure it can. Ooh, yes. Okay, lovely performance. What's the torque like? Let's see, fingers in front of buffers. Can it move its wheels? Well, yeah, it keeps cutting out, but it can do, and I'm glad too, because it's such a light loco. If it was struggling to move itself, I'd be very concerned. But anyway, let's run this in 50% speed. Let's see how it gets on. Here goes. So as a shunting locomotive, curves should not be a problem for this loco, but let's just verify that that's the case. Second radius, no slowing down. Yeah, short wheelbase makes that nice and easy. And there it goes, smooth and reliable, noticeably doing a lot less cutting out now that it's been running for a few minutes, which looks good. So yeah, as long as things stay good and possibly even improve slightly with running in, this is a marvellous performer. The slow speed is excellent, seems to be pretty reliable for a short wheelbase 040, even handling the points quite nicely. Good range of speed, sensible gearing, no problem on curves. Yeah, what can you say? Really, really impressive. So I'll let this run in fully, and then I'll come back and we'll test what this thing can haul. Probably not a lot, but let's give it a go. Okay, there we go then folks, running in complete, and as expected, no issues whatsoever. It's a genuinely beautiful runner. I also forgot to show you the firebox flicker effect in motion, so here it is now. You can see that both of the LEDs sort of fade into each other and fade out again, and they're a slightly different colour as well, so it's a really convincing effect. Quite impressive for the size of this loco. Performance-wise though, yeah, it's perfect. Really good on the curves, nice and smooth, not cutting out actually, which is surprising. And if anything, I would say it's even smoother and more reliable now than it was when I first tried it. So yeah, really, really impressive. Let me show you the crawl then. Let's see if that's a bit more reliable, because it was slow and smooth before. Here we go. Oh, it's just unbelievable how slow that can go. And reverse. Bit slower. Yeah, so controlled. So performance is wonderful, really, really wonderful. As you might expect, the pulling power isn't great because of how light this is, so it comes in at 0.08 newtons, which is basically the same as your basic plastic Hornby train set 040, not great. And even my 3D printed copper knob, which was a really small and light loco, that is considerably more powerful than this. So not a powerful loco. I suppose that's fair enough because it's only a dock shunter, it's not supposed to be hauling massively long trains. But for £100, a bit more weight, a little bit more pulling power would have been nice to see. So on that note, I've set up some open wagons because they're nice and light. A fair number of these because I do like to sort of test the limits of the locos I review. But I think if it can haul those without a problem, then most prototypical loads for this will probably be okay on reasonably straight and level track. So let's give this a try. Let's back up and let's see if those droopy couplings are going to engage properly. Right, I can do this really steadily if I want to, so let's do that. Real slow. Right, it's met the wagons. Did the coupling work? No, it didn't. Let's try again, a bit quicker. Yeah, worked in the end. But that wasn't exactly very realistic, was it? So let's try again. Let's just see if that was a fluke or whether it really has an issue with the couplings. I think it probably will do, to be honest, because the couplings are very droopy, like I said. Let's go for a bit more of a reasonable speed. Right, did it work? No, not really. So yeah, that's unacceptable, unfortunately. A shunting loco with droopy couplings that makes coupling too difficult. Yeah, not good. There's no excuse for that, unfortunately. Dapol used to be really bad for couplings, and I think really to have re-released this loco without updating them was a mistake, because clearly that's not working well. Right, see if I can bend it up a bit. Don't want to snap it. Is that better? No, it's no good. Right, manual then. Let's just do it by hand. There we go. Once coupled, I think it'll be okay, but yeah, not good. Okay, let's take it away then. Can it at least haul these? Well, on the level, it seems so. Yeah, that looks fine. So on the middle line, I've got the other B4. Oh, it wasn't doing that without a load. All right, well, that's only the express point. See how we get on. So yeah, the other B4 in the brown. Oh, it's struggling on express points now. That's annoying. Brown one isn't, actually. That's interesting. Yeah, I know these are freight locos, but these coaches, these Hornby, I think they're even LBSC, not even LSWR. But they just match. They look so right. So I thought, rule one, I'll bung them behind it, see what it looks like, and I quite like it. And then on the inside line, I've got the Hatton's Andrew Barclay. Wait for that to come round. And I got to say, for the same price, this loco is a lot better. Very easy to access and service. Die-cast running plate, much more weight to it, much more pulling power, and it's been put together better as well. So yeah, not Dapol's best work, I don't think, but it's far from their worst, and it's still a decent looking loco. So this loco was released for the first time about 6 years ago, 2018, and as such, I don't think this is Dapol's best work, particularly from a design perspective. I think their later models, their newer models, have been designed a lot better than this. They tend to work better, they're certainly a lot easier to access and service and chip, and the quality has been a lot better as well. Now this is not a terrible model, I actually do quite like it. It looks marvellous as it runs along like this. But seeing a new batch released now, when Dapol's newer models are so much better, does make this stand out a little bit as being slightly inferior. So there's a lot to consider with this model. I think some of it may or may not apply to a model you might buy. The build quality, for instance, may be better on a different example. But then there are other aspects like the coupling design and the accessibility and the lightweight that are going to be common to all of these models. That's not going to be just an error or an issue with mine. So yeah, for £100 these are okay. I wouldn't recommend paying much more than that because, like I say, it's not the greatest model in the world. But I have to say it's good to see a model that is reasonably affordable. It's just we have seen better for £99. But anyway, it's a beautiful looking model. I do like the way it looks. The livery is great on this, and as you can see, it's hauling these wagons quite well. So yes, it's light, it's not as powerful as some, but for prototypical loads, I would say it seems to be fine. And now some ratings then for the LSWR B4 by Dapol. And as much as I like this loco, it has to be a fairly mixed review from me. Level of detail is really close to a 5 because there's lots going on here. We've got sprung buffers, top-notch livery, really nicely done, masses of detail, tons of separately fitted parts, and a really good cab, not to mention the LED lighting in the cab as well. However, it doesn't get the full 5-star because it doesn't come with chain link couplings, which I think is a pity, and the cab could have been a little bit better if the gauges had been painted. So can't give it 5-star while there are other models that do have these features, but other than that, yeah, detail marvellous. Performance, again, I really wanted to give this 5-star because it's fantastic. Really nice and reliable despite the small wheelbase. Marvellous performer, nice and smooth thanks to that 5-pole motor and the flywheel. Really good. It's just when you back it up to some wagons, it doesn't couple. Coupling's not quite right. So I've had to knock it off a star for that. I think that's quite generous, if anything. Pulling power, not very good. The weight of 90 grams means that the tractive effort is only 0.08 newtons. So this is Hornby train set 040 levels. Not very powerful, 9 coaches. Mechanism is generally really good. We've got proper bearings, nice simple mechanism, 5-pole motor with a flywheel. All of that's absolutely fine. All-wheel pickup too, I suppose. It's just not accessible. Having to remove the base keeper plate and faff around with the kinematic couplings just to access the DCC decoder socket is utterly ridiculous, and if I struggled with it, others are going to as well. And Dapol's newer designs are much better. This seems to be particularly awkward compared with those. Quality then, I think this is where the model falls down the most. Plastic construction, which means it's very light, warped plastic running plate as well, quite a few parts loose, those sandboxes, and also the odd wonky part as well. Also drooping couplings that don't work right. So 2-star, best I can do. Value for money then, now the price definitely isn't bad. RRP £126.36 and around £100 at the retailers. Now that is fine, I think for the money this model isn't too bad. However, when you look at the Hatton's Andrew Barclay, which is the same price, well, this is a much better model, higher quality, and I have far fewer complaints about it. So it's not a bargain, but it's not a rip-off either. So overall that is 6.91 out of 10, or a grade of E. Yes, a lovely looking loco, but it is let down by the poor quality and some strange design choices. Into the logbook we go, and it is 5th place, so not doing too bad really, above the Bachmann 04 and below the Hornby Lord Nelson. Well folks, that will just about do it for this review. Thank you so much for watching. Do comment down below and let me know what you think about this. Do you agree with me? Do you think this is a little bit behind the times? Or do you think, actually, you know, it's not that expensive, it's not that bad for what you get, it's actually fine? Well, let me know whatever the case may be. For now though, I'll say once again, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon for another review. Alright, cheers folks, you take care.